Summer 1943, Camp Crossville, Tennessee. The brown liquid fizzing in a glass bottle mesmerized the German soldier. He'd never seen anything like it. After 2 years fighting in North Africa, surviving on dry biscuits and ersatz coffee, this sweet, carbonated drink called Coca-Cola seemed like a miracle. It cost 5 cents, the same price, the guards told him, that American children paid with their allowances. Across hundreds of U.S. prison camps that summer, 371,000 captured German soldiers would face the same revelation. The country they'd been told was weak and decadent was in fact overflowing with strength. They found a nation where ice cream was a routine dessert, where soft drinks were everyday beverages, where candy bars were so common guards gave them away. To men raised on Nazi propaganda, this wasn't just shocking, it was destabilizing. Because these weren't luxuries. They were proof of an industrial civilization so efficient that sweetness itself had become democratic.
May 1943. Tunisia. The Afrika Korps surrenders. Nearly 250,000 German and Italian soldiers fall into Allied hands. Battle-hardened men who had chased the British across the desert now expected harsh treatment in return. They'd been warned what to expect: starvation, brutality, humiliation. Instead, within hours of capture, American soldiers handed them K-rations: crackers, processed cheese, candy, fruit bars, sugar tablets, instant coffee, cigarettes. What American GIs called barely edible field food, the Germans saw as a feast. At North African processing camps, the U.S. Army served pancakes with syrup, eggs, and milk, foods that had disappeared from German rations years earlier. A captured officer later told the Red Cross, "We expected to be starved. Instead, the Americans fed us better than our own army had." It was the beginning of something no one had planned: re-education through abundance.
By the summer of 1943, Liberty ships were ferrying 30,000 prisoners a month across the ocean to America. Each ship was a floating factory of comfort. 3,500 calories a day, fresh bread, meat, vegetables, and coffee, with sugar and milk. Some even served ice cream. One ship's log from July 4, 1943, records the crew celebrating by serving ice cream to prisoners, 10 gallons at a time. For men who hadn't seen ice cream since before the war, this was incomprehensible. They were sailing across the Atlantic, prisoners of a nation that had enough excess to freeze milk and sugar just for pleasure. When ships docked at ports like Norfolk or Newport News, German prisoners stepped into a country that Nazi propaganda said could not exist. The Norfolk Naval Base alone handled more cargo in a single day than major German ports did in a week. In the base canteens, shelves overflowed with candy bars from Hershey, Mars, and Nestle, each 5 cents, exactly the same price anywhere in America. When the trains carried prisoners inland, the surprises continued. They rode in passenger coaches, not cattle cars. Dining cars served fried chicken, vegetables, pie, and coffee. And they learned this wasn't special treatment. It was just standard American rail service.
At camps like Crossville, Tennessee, life exceeded every expectation. Electric lights, hot water, flush toilets, heated barracks. But the real shock came from the PX stores, the prison camp exchanges. For sale, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, candy bars, ice cream, cigarettes, each 5 or 10 cents. Prisoners earned 80 cents a day for labor.
A day's wage could buy 16 Cokes or candy bars. In Germany, those products were mythical. In America, they were everywhere. Company records show Coca-Cola produced 5 billion bottles in 1943 alone. The Army's global contract guaranteed soldiers, and yes, even prisoners, a bottle for 5 cents, anywhere in the world. German engineers noticed something remarkable. Every Coke tasted identical. The syrup made in Atlanta, the bottling in dozens of cities, the nationwide refrigeration and delivery, all perfectly standardized. It wasn't just a soft drink. It was proof of a production system so massive and coordinated that it turned luxury into routine.
Then came ice cream. To German prisoners, it was impossible. Frozen dessert in summer heat, in the middle of a war? Yet camp records confirm it was regularly served. The U.S. military considered ice cream vital for morale. So vital that it built ice cream barges, floating factories capable of producing 10 gallons a minute for troops in the Pacific. In Mississippi, on July 4, 1943, prisoners watched as guards hand-cranked freezers filled with ice, salt, sugar, and cream. The casual use of those ingredients, scarce in Europe, stunned them. By 1944, many camps had electric ice cream machines, producing gallons a week. Chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, butter pecan, flavors that hadn't existed in Germany for years. To men who'd fought for Hitler's dream of supremacy, the revelation was simple. Power came not from conquest, but from abundance. Sugar bowls sat on mess hall tables, unguarded and full. In Germany, sugar was rationed to 280 grams per month when available. In American camps, it was unlimited. When a few 100 pounds spoiled in Alabama, kitchen staff simply threw it out and ordered more. German prisoners were horrified, not by cruelty, but by waste born of surplus. Chocolate was the same story. The U.S. military alone purchased 380 million pounds of chocolate during the war. Every camp stocked multiple brands. To Americans, chocolate was a snack. To German soldiers, it was proof that industrial democracy could outproduce dictatorship. In November 1943, prisoners across America sat down to Thanksgiving dinner. Roast turkey, mashed potatoes, gravy, pumpkin pie, and coffee. The same meal served to American soldiers. A month later, at Christmas, churches and civic groups sent packages to the camps: cookies, candy, games, books, cigarettes. In small towns, families brought homemade treats to enemy prisoners. To men raised to see Americans as decadent and cruel, it was bewildering. They realized that this society's strength came not from hatred, but from mercy. By 1944, 100,000 German prisoners worked in U.S. agriculture and food processing. They picked cherries for ice cream sundaes. They saw canneries discard fruit for being imperfect. They learned that American sugar production exceeded 7 million tons annually. They watched school children drink fresh milk daily, while German children faced hunger. They ate at diners where anyone, rich or poor, could order the same meal for the same price. This equality of consumption, abundance without privilege, destroyed the logic of Nazi hierarchy. By 1944, the data was public. Sugar, 7 million tons a year. Chocolate, 380 million pounds. Coca-Cola, 5 billion bottles. Ice cream, 500 million gallons. Milk, 119 billion pounds. Germany, by comparison, had virtually none. Even American rationing looked luxurious. Schuber rations 3 times higher. Meat 7 times higher. For German prisoners, the contrast was undeniable. They began sending food home to families starving in freedom. In total, they mailed 11 million packages of American goods back to Germany.
When the war ended, most prisoners returned heavier and healthier than when they'd arrived. They came home carrying chocolate bars, coffee tins, and stories their families could hardly believe. "My first Coca-Cola," one veteran later recalled, "was like drinking the future. It was sweet, fizzing, completely unnecessary, and available to anyone for a nickel." They'd seen that American power didn't come from conquest. It came from creation. These men became post-war Germany's quiet revolutionaries, businessmen, engineers, politicians who rebuilt their country not through control, but through productivity and consumer abundance. They'd seen it with their own eyes: mass production, standardization, and a belief that prosperity could be shared.
By the 1950s, Coca-Cola was everywhere in West Germany. Ice cream parlors modeled on American soda fountains opened in every city. Supermarkets appeared, many introduced by former POWs who'd seen them first in America. The men who had once fought for a totalitarian empire helped build a democratic economy. They'd learned that freedom could feed more people than tyranny ever could. And it all began with a 5-cent bottle of Coke.